Okay. It's
Okay. Hi, everybody. We are here with Kathleen Osborne. And we're doing this interview for our website, the Transcendent Authors. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi. It's good to see you.
Yeah, by the way, my name is Anna Lipster, and I'm also a member of the Transcendent Authors.
Mhm.
So, Kathleen, I wanted to ask you what stimulated you to form this group with other writers, and what brought all the people together? How did you do that?
Well, I was a member of the Right Practice, and the leader of that was famous for doing short stories and teaching people how to publish short stories. At the same time, um, I was kind of down. My father passed away shortly after 9/11, and he said the greatest thing he ever did in his life was get through all the reading to become a pilot. And I found out why after he passed away, that he had adult ADD. And people who have that struggle with concentrating, they either get very nervous, they fall asleep, or they get angry. He would fall asleep or he would get real antsy.
Uh-huh.
And he could not concentrate over a magazine article.
I
That's
see.
the longest he could read. And then my goddaughter, one of my goddaughters, has stage 4 cancer. She's going on to her 11th year, I believe. And the chemo that she's under constantly keeps her from being able to hold a book.
Right.
She can balance a computer or something like that, her laptop, and read from that, or her telephone. But again, she can't handle it for long periods.
I see.
And then I got to thinking about all the moms and the dads with kids, work, activities, and that want to read, but they don't want to start a novel because it's going to take forever. So short stories are a good answer for that. And then I started looking around. I put out a call on Right Practice, which is where I got your name. And all but I think 2 of the people were on the Right Practice that I recruited. I wanted 10 so that we would have 10 to 20 stories per book. And it
Yeah,
was
that's
easy to divide the royalties.
great idea.
And I wanted to teach people how to publish themselves and
Right.
help walk them through it, all of that. And so that's how it came to be.
Wonderful idea. And it worked. I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you, it worked. I know you published recently your science fiction romance, The King of Onus.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask you about that a bit later, but first I wanted to ask you, how do you, what made you choose this science fiction as your primary genre?
Well, I love
What?
sci-fi movies. I just don't like sci-fi horror movies. I like the adventure, space opera type things like, Star Wars, Star Trek, stuff like that. It's fun. There are no rules.
I
You
see.
can create a world, you can create different races and religions and all of this, and nobody can dispute it because it's your world.
Exactly. Well, that's wonderful. Wow. Yeah, that's very good idea. So, talking about ideas, where do you get your ideas for the plots? Like the one wonderful idea you had for the story on the King of Onos. How did you?
I get them from seeing different things. It could be something as small as I showed this to you before. It's a
Yes.
pyramid, and then it looks like there's a ball floating over it, and then it's like a diagram underneath. And when I saw this, I had to buy it because it made me think of three different stories.
Oh.
Yeah. So either this is a world encased in something that it can fly from universe to universe, or it's a world encased because it's a prison planet and they're
Wow.
all nefarious beings on there. Or it was put on there as protection from something that was happening, say, to their son, and this that went away, and this started deteriorating, and it was going to crush the planet. So there's three stories right here.
One pyramid. Wow, how prolific. Wonderful.
So that's why
Fantastic.
it's still sitting here because I haven't started those yet.
Well, that's wonderful. Um, that's something also, something else that I know you are a very busy person and you participate in many events and uh, many, many and various workshops. So how do you manage to apply the ideas you have for the books and the short stories? How, you know, what do? You write notes while you're traveling, or how is it that you keep the ideas you have and, you know, while being present in all those events?
I write notes. I have notebooks. I have a notebook per story. And when the story is done, if it's a short story, it's not going to be a whole notebook. So I'll pull those pages out and put it in a file. If I'm traveling, I always have my laptop with me and I will work on that at night or in the early morning before we get on the road. Um, in fact, I've traveled during November, which is NaNoWriMo, doing 50,000 words in 30 days.
Wow.
And we were visiting my in-laws and we stayed at a hotel where it was a kitchenette, like a mini apartment.
Mm.
And my husband could sleep. I could get up early. I could write. And then we'd go spend time with them. And he needed time alone with his brother. His mom wanted to take a nap. I went back to the hotel and I worked. That's,
Fantastic. Wow. So you keep working while you are working. You know, this
yeah,
is how
yeah.
that's
My brain doesn't stop.
wow. Go, that's great. Um, tell me something. All this process, you know, of having the idea and writing your notes, even while you're doing something else, and then sitting and writing and revising and editing, uh, all that. Which one would you think that it's um, the best part of all the work? What, you know, where do you have your you know, you enjoy most
The
until you have
writing,
the final draft,
the writing.
the
I
actual
I
writing?
I I enjoy the writing and I enjoy working with developmental editors or sounding boards, like you and I have talked about different things to help get each other out of our characters out of certain situations. And I love that part. And I love when I put it down and then I pick it up a few months later and I go, oh, I wrote this? Me? That part I love too.
So the actual act of producing something, of
Yeah.
getting it out of your mind into the computer or
Mhm.
the well, that's wonderful. So what you planned for your next book, after The King of Onus?
Actually, I'm about 1/3 of the way through the outline for its sequel.
Oh,
But I also have another book that's with an editor. I've worked with a developmental editor about 18 months on this book. And it should be coming out in the late spring. And then I have its first or its second part. It's a 3-part. That one's a trilogy. And the second part is in draft form. I wrote that 2 years ago and haven't looked at it since, which is technically what they tell you should do. You should
exactly.
write it, put it on the shelf, let it sit, and then go and look at it with fresh eyes and start cutting, adding,
Right.
and
Revise,
shaping
editing.
it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good message. Yeah. Also, things change. The world changes, and
Hmm.
yeah, you
Well,
s-
my
you
my I go through training. All of us do. We never quit learning as writers. And I have learned so much in the last 2 years that when I read it, I know that there's going to be massive changes. And the
exactly.
editing capabilities that we have just online, just in like Pro Writing Aid and AutoCrit, they're not quite equivalent to line editors because you need the human factor. You need
Exactly.
the ability to understand there are two different types of two. Well, three actually, because you have the number two, you have TO, and you have TOO.
Right.
And sometimes
And the
the
machine cannot catch it. Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, I am a perfectionist. So my problem, if you can call it a problem, is that I it takes time to reach to the end of the short story or the book because I keep coming back to the beginning and revising and changing and a new idea for the setting for the dialogue comes up and it takes time for me to move on to the next chapter or what happens with you? Do you write all, the first draft all at once and then go
Mhm.
back?
Yes,
Uh,
I write it all the way through and then I go back. Then I also will take it to critique groups and like the Dream Brides, which is coming out next. I had a completely different opening. I mean, it
mm,
still showed that my villain was a schmuck. I mean, he's
you
a
are
real, in
you
fact, I went to a reading class learning how to read from my story to an audience. And the guy who we had to send in the first couple of pages that we were going to read, and he had read it and he said, please, please tell me he dies. This guy really needs to die. I said,
wow,
he
so,
does. He does.
yeah, very strong character. If even the the agent got stuck with the evil on that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Wow.
And, but you still know he's a schmuck, but it's not as, um, there's more instant grab of the reader. Because when I started, I hadn't had any experience writing a book. And so I didn't have um, that sense in the first sentence that people would want to go, oh, I'm reading this.
Right.
Whereas it was like, oh, okay. Let me read another paragraph or so. I don't know. And so
Uh-huh.
now it will grab you.
Great. Happy to hear that. Well, Kathleen, was a pleasure talking to you as always. and hope to see you next, and hope to see soon the next book on the series. Because the
Okay.
first one is amazing, I can tell you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to it too. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay.